Hi there. It's been a little while since I posted, and partly that's been because there's not been a whole lot of gardening stuff been going on other than a little bit of fall cleanup. Well, early winter cleanup this weekend. Anyways, it's time to start winter sowing. This year, this is my second year, and I have learned a lot from the first year last year. So one of the things I'm going to do is try to break down in several smaller videos some of the things that I'm doing, some of the prep work that I've already done, and just give you the basic overview. There's tons of people who have YouTube videos on all the details of how to do winter sowing and the benefits. There's a fantastic Facebook group called Winter Sowers. I'll try to link it below if I can. And they teach the method that was originally credited as how to do winter sowing. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but her first name is Trudy. Last name starts with a G, and is the person who developed this method and really kind of formalized how to do it. But I'm going to just share with you my journey this year. Last year I did over 217 containers. And several of those containers were large and probably would have been the equivalent of 4 or 5 gallon milk jugs. So I did a lot. A lot did well and grew and was able to be planted, and some did not. So that's part of the lessons I learned last year. So we're going to get started today. I thought I would just share with you the basic materials and the basic steps. And then as I work through getting my winter sowing together and done, I'll make a couple more videos showing you any other tips or tricks that I've learned or can think of, and just the progress as we go along. So let me get this turned. All right, so basic materials. You need a quality potting mix. This is the brand that I used last year because, not that I'm trying to be completely organic, but I just had seen lots of good reviews. There are lots of places where you can find this. Now is not the best time of year. It's late December, early January, depending on where you live. I have found a website, Greenhouse Megastore, that has, I believe, this is a 1 cubic foot bag, and I think when I last looked it was around $20. And if you order at least a minimum amount, I can't remember if it was $100 or $150 or something in that neighborhood of whatever from them, there's no shipping cost. So that's not horrible, but it is definitely more than what you would pay for other potting mixes. But I had really pretty good results with this last year, so this is what I'm sticking with. I actually bought several bags this summer from my local gardening center when they had their summer discounts. So I got it for a much better price, and I just stocked up and got several bags. But potting mix is one of those things where you can get what you like, and that's really all there is to that. But you need potting mix, and you want potting mix, not just dirt, and not starting mix. A seed starter mix has a different kind of composition. It's going to have issues with moisture because we're going to be sticking this dirt and these seeds in milk jugs and just sticking them outside. And so this is what's going to manage keeping the seeds from getting too wet or too dry throughout the rest of the winter so that they have a healthy environment to grow. Seed starting mix, things would get too dry, and dirt, things would tend to clump up and get more solid, and moisture would end up being an issue. I like to use a little hand trowel. This is one that's from Gardener Supply. I think the actual manufacturer of it is DeWitt, and it's a high quality solid trowel that I should never have to replace. So I went ahead and got this. This is the handle, DeWitt, with just one T. And then you need some kind of tape. I'm going to use a mixture of things that I have left over from last year, plus just some duct tape that I bought. I liked this. This came from Ace. It's white, and so it was really easy to write on and see if you wanted to make labels. So I may save this to make some outside labels. I label my containers multiple ways. So first of all, I'm going to put at least one of these tags inside, and you want to use an actual garden marker. I'll find mine in a second. I use a brand, a type that I get off of Amazon that just is called Garden Marker. And I will find that and show you what it looks like in a minute. You need some kind of scissors possibly to cut your tape maybe. If you don't have your milk jugs already set up, you would need something like this to cut around, or you could maybe use an X-Acto knife or a box cutter, something like this. I used, I think it was these, but you want to punch holes in the bottom of your milk jug before you cut it open. And then of course you need seeds. I've got mine organized. Some of these I'm going to be also trying to start indoors just to see and compare the difference. And I'm going to put also coffee filters at the bottom of my jugs. And you need some kind of containers. I'm going to reuse a lot of the milk jugs that I used last year. I hung them up here just on some strings in my garage. They're mostly cleaned out. I'm going to try to maybe just wipe out any big chunks of dirt. I'm not too concerned. Nothing seemed to have any kind of diseases or issues. Some people would say you probably need to really clean these out. This is my second time doing this. I'm going to not get too concerned with that. And I guess we'll see in the spring if that comes back to bite me. Something else that I did last year is I also added just a little bit of Biotone starter to my mix, my soil mix, my potting mix, in case it took me longer than would be according to Trudy's method to get my plants out of the milk jugs and get planted. Sometimes spring, my day job, sometimes in the spring, it gets super busy, and I can't always get things out of the jug into the ground as soon as possible. This year, in fact, there were some things that did not get out of jugs until midsummer, and they did okay. Obviously, they would have probably taken off better had they been planted sooner, but life happened, and that's where it landed. I found my marker. These are the ones that I use. Sharpie will fade or come off as much as you would think a permanent marker wouldn't. The combination of the elements, the UV rays from the sun, does cause the writing to just basically disappear. And I will probably be doing in the neighborhood of 100 containers this year at least. So I definitely, because baby plants tend to look a lot alike, especially certain varieties, I want to know what's in each jug. So this is the brand that I get off of Amazon. There's lots of different sellers that sell these. They're not too expensive, and this will hold up. These are numbers that sat out all year, and they did just fine. I numbered my jugs on the top, on the side, and on the bottom. And you can see, since the numbers are all still looking pretty good, that's the part of my system is I am going to keep track in a spreadsheet. I've made a printout here of all the seeds that I have. I'll mark down what container I'm putting each thing in. And I will also make a tag, and I also may write it on a piece of tape on the outside, just what it is, because I found that really helpful last year. I made some some identification tags like this, and it was helpful as I was looking as things started to grow to see what was what without having to go back and always looking at my spreadsheet. So the basic process is you're going to get your soil damp. You're wanting it to be pretty damp, basically really almost kind of soggy. Fill your container up to at least about a 3-inch, 4-inch level. I'm going to fill these up about as far as I can. You want to have holes in the bottom for drainage. You don't need any holes in the top if it's a milk jug, because you're just not going to put a lid back on. And then once I've got them full of soil, I'll bring them over here, kind of line them up, and sprinkle my seeds on top. Depending on what kind of seeds you're doing, if it's something that has a lot of seeds in the packets, some people say you just sprinkle them all on there, kind of, you know, spread them around. And then when it comes time in the spring to plant, you just make like hunks of the little baby plants and plant them out, as opposed to necessarily like you would if you were starting seeds in something like this, where you would try to separate out and have just one plant. So depends on how many seeds you have in a package. Some of the packages of seeds that I have only have a few seeds. Those I'll try to, you know, be strategic and separate out so that I can get one plant per chunk. Others where there's a bunch of seeds, I'm going to just sprinkle them around, and we'll do that hunk of seeds method. And depending on how well they do, will determine how big of a hunk or a chunk I cut them into when it's time to plant. I had some jugs last year that had plants, baby seedlings through the whole jug, and I had some where, you know, there was a few here and there. So I think part of that was I didn't necessarily do as good a job on the checking them through the spring when we would have dry spells to make sure they don't dry out. And that's one of the key things. You just want to check your jugs every so often if you have dry spells to make sure that they're staying kind of heavy. That indicates that they've still got moisture in them for the seeds to not dry out. But again, that's where you want to make sure you have enough drain holes at the bottom so that they don't have too much moisture and your seeds then would rot. So I'm going to add some water to my container here where I've got my soil. This is just a cement mixing tray. I found that to be the best option for mixing up my soil with some water, and then I'll just scoop it out with handfuls or maybe a small container into my jugs. I'll put my seeds. Oh, sorry. First, I'll put a coffee filter. That just helps keep things from, like slugs, from crawling up through those holes. Then I'll, once the dirt and seeds are in there, I'll wrap it around with a piece of duct tape. Double check that I've labeled on my list what went in here, and then stick them outside. Sorry about that. Stick them outside and let them do their thing until they're ready to germinate. And then in the spring, hopefully have lots of new seedlings to plant out in the flower beds. So that is the overview of winter sowing for 23-24, and hopefully I've got lots of new baby plants coming to plant out in my flower beds. Thanks for joining me here today in Aunt Susan's garden.